video how to bend back your Traxxas Ultra Shocks. See, this one's bent here. Nate took it off a jump and completely bent this one. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it's very bent. The actual shock shaft is bent. So I'm going to teach you how to bend it back. So first of all, as you see here, you take off your shock with a Phillips head screwdriver. So just set this aside now. Once you have that off, you have your shock here. I'm just going to move you over here. Okay, now that we're over here, I'm just going to show you. You're going to need a clamp also, pliers, and a screwdriver once you have your any kind of pull here that would fit through a hole like this. So first of all, start take your shock retainer off, pull off your spring, take your retainer, top retainer, your spacer, and now as you see the shock right there, it's kind of bent, as you can see there. So now that you have that, you're going to grab your pliers, and if you can't twist it with your hands, see, I can twist this one with your hands. Take your end cap off, your pivot cap off the bottom of your shock. Once you have that off, set that aside. And the reason why I took that off is because this pole has got to slide all the way through, and the piston, the whole piece has got to slide through. Now you're going to take your screw, if it's on there tight enough, and it's easier just to go like that, but since it's already loose, I just take this off. Empty all your shock oil out of it. I already did that. Once you emptied all your shock oil out of it, now that it's bent, you're going to have to loosen this off because it won't fit through there if it's bent. So push this through, take that off, push this through like that, and then there's your shaft, as you see there. That's the bent part. So now you're going to use your clamp to actually bend that back. Get a rag or something, wipe it off. So once you have that, then you put it in your clamp and try to bend it back as much as possible, as you see here. These shocks are easy to bend back and forth. They're something that's easy enough to bend, because these do bend quite a bit. You'll notice that when you have either any one of the Traxxas models with this kind of suspension shock. You'll notice it, but just kind of hammer it. Try to bend it back over. Try not to hit the piston, because you don't want to damage that. You don't want to damage it because what it's doing is it's actually acting as a squeegee, basically, and you want it to be tight against the walls of the shock body. So take that. It's not completely bent back yet, so we'll put it back in the clamp. Just where it's bent. See exactly where it's bent. Line it up. Right about there. Bend it back this way. Okay, now that's bent back, as you see there, it's perfectly straight. And then what you do is you take your shock body again, make sure the O-ring seals are still in there, pop it back in the bottom, facing down this way, pull it down through, and it's pretty straight, as you see there. No bendage or anything. Once you have that, then you take your cap here, retainer cap at the bottom, screw that back on, make sure everything slides in and out perfectly. See, no resistance, feels really smooth. Now you can take your end pivot ball cap at the bottom here, and again squeeze the shock shaft so it doesn't twist while you're doing this. Some companies actually make tools that will hold your shock end bell cap onto, so it's easier to use it. So now that you have that, just make sure it's in working order. It's bent back perfectly. Fill her up with shock oil. Grab, I'm going to be using 40 weight shock oil for now, so I'm just going to fill this up here. Try not to miss like I just did. Just fill her up until you get to the top. Don't fill it completely overflowing. I'm just going to take a rag here and clean off the excess. Okay, and I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but there's a little droop. It's almost like an indent, and the outer layers are level with the top of the shock body, and then there's a droop inside. Make it so it's level, don't overflow it, and then take your shock cap, twist it on about not even halfway, about like that. Move your shock up and down, see if everything is working in one order. Get all the air bubbles up to the top, twist it around a bit. Usually let these sit for about like 5 minutes or something like that, a minute or whatever, and just to get all the air bubbles to the top, but I'm just doing this quickly. So screw it on a little more, make sure there's no air bubbles in there, because if you don't do this, then all that excess oil won't come out and it will explode your shock. It'll be under compression. So, and then keep turning it on. So let's keep making sure it's the pivot ball, the pillow ball here is touching, cap is touching the end of the body here, so it doesn't, that's how you measure it. And then just when you get to a point, put the cap on, put that screwdriver in, and then just see if it's working in order. It's working very smooth. So put your top retainer on, or your spacer, whichever way you're doing it. Put the top retainer on, spring on, and take your bottom retainer, put it at the bottom. And now the shock is bent back to normal. As you see there, it's bent back perfectly. It's nice and straight now. So that basically is how you rebuild a shock. Well, not really rebuild, but bend the shock shaft. Because you got to really take it apart, because you can't really put it in the machine and bend it, or else you're just going to start breaking stuff. So that's basically how you bend back your Traxxas shocks. These shocks are used in very many of the cars, like the Traxxas E-Max, the Traxxas Wrestler, like what this is on, Traxxas Bandit, Traxxas Stampede, many other cars this is used on, Traxxas Stampede 4x4. So it's basically all the same thing. So that's just how to bend back a Traxxas Ultra Shock. So feel free to check out the other videos and take it easy.